everyone. Welcome to the Bookbot Theory, your go-to place for all things book marketing. Today we have an exciting guest with us, Leonard. Welcome, Leonard. Leonard Fernandes co-founded Dogears an online bookstore for used books in 2006 and CinnamonTeal Publishing a year later, thus pioneering the business of providing publishing services to authors and trade publishers in India. Leonard has completed his BE Mechanical from the Goa Engineering College and his MBA from the Ohio State University. In 2010, he was awarded the Young Creative Entrepreneur Publisher Award by the British Council. Thank you so much, Leonard, for spending your weekend morning with us for this discussion. So in today's episode, we will be talking about the role of bookstores in book marketing. Leonard, our first question for you is, can you share some insights into the curation process for books in your store? What factors influence your selections?
So first of all, thank you for having me here. I get this question from people who want to start a new bookshop. What should our first location of the bookshop look like? And I always tell them that it should reflect your tastes, because you will bring that unique offering to the table. Yeah. So whether it's so somebody might not like fiction and non-fiction, or he might not like poetry. So, and then you go by what the market says is good. But I've come to believe that the book bestseller list is not one to go by, because there are other books there that might have not been discovered or reviewed or looked at simply because they have not been revealed to the world in that sense. So as a bookseller, I think it's my duty to go through every book that's available and see what fits my taste. So in the end, the taste aspect is always there. You might so as a result of which, for a long time we did not have romance books because we were not big readers of romance. But then we slowly realized that there is a market for them, for good romance books, those came in slowly. So I think our curation depends on a mix of taste and a mix of what people are asking for.
That's very insightful and interesting, as it actually collides with what our second question is going to be. How do you think self-published authors should navigate the challenge of getting their books into physical bookstores? What strategies do you think have worked, or you have seen them work for authors? Because this is a challenge that a lot of self-published authors are facing.
The challenge is not unfounded entirely, because at the conception and production stage itself, authors have kind of yielded that control over quality that self-publishing gives them to these service providers. So I think the authors should have educated themselves more on what constitutes a book and on what constitutes a good book. So they say we do not need editing. So there itself you've lost the plot, because if your book does not need editing, then it is probably going to go in the market with errors and omissions, and because if I'm an English professor, it doesn't mean I will write well, right? It doesn't mean that things that are obvious to me do not have to be spelled out for my reader. So there are blind spots when you are editing your own work. Those blind spots even creep in when your friend is editing your own work. That's why when people say, I'll get it edited, we say, please get it edited from someone who doesn't know you and will treat that transaction as a professional transaction. Because you have to get honest feedback about these things. It doesn't work if a friend edits, because a friend might not be honest, might not be brutally honest in that sense. So it's not unfounded that these books are not entering the bookshop because A, they are badly edited, B, they are badly produced. There are there are there are people who have sent me books that are printed on copier paper and stapled together. Nobody will buy that book, and it is a waste of shelf space to even put that out there. So, so in answer to your question, I think the author needs to make sure that the book is presentable and well edited in the first place, because after that comes the role of the. So what we tell them is, you send us a couple of copies or one copy for review, and then we will make that choice. I don't think there are some bookshops which even bother with that, because they almost know what's going to come. So I think the onus is not on the bookshops, the onus is on the author to make sure that the book is produced well, uh, looks presentable, um, because you're competing with very good books for shelf space for the reader's attention. You cannot put a slipshod book out there. So yeah, so that's my answer to your question, in the sense that the authors need to make sure that they are in the book is produced well.
Well, I completely agree with you. You know, Leonard, I'm a writer, apart from being an editor myself, but I still hire an editor for my writing because I feel that there are blind spots that even I can see as an editor in my own writing, and you tend to be biased because you worked on it for so long that you will not be able to find your own mistakes despite you knowing editing technically. This is a very important point. I agree with what you've said. So, you know, in this digital age, it is very crucial for authors to build an online presence. So how do you think, you know, how do you suggest authors to go about this, and how do you suggest they should work on this?
Yeah. So are you talking about self-published authors or generally?
General, because you know it complements the offline presence as well. Like even if it's traditional published authors, I'm sure once the book comes to you, they still have to promote it somewhere to redirect and say that, you know, you can buy the book from this shop.
Yeah, that, and plus, you know, I think book marketing doesn't stop at any given point.
Yeah.
It's not that you've released the book, you have a 10-day book marketing, and then that's the end of it. Because people don't buy books that way. They don't buy books because you have released a book. They buy books when they buy books, right? So that book then has to be in your face all the time. It if you go back to how you began searching for a book, you must have read it somewhere in a newspaper, in a review, or you must have seen it more than once on social media, or you must have gone to an author's launch and heard the author speak very passionately about the book. So all these, if they have contributed towards you buying a book, then obviously they will then contribute towards somebody buying your book. So online, it would be social media staggered over a period of time, but consistently. You know, you don't stop at any point of time. You cannot stop at any point of time. You ask for reviews. You ask for bookshop appearances. You get in front of your customer and say, "This is my book. This is why you should read it." Because there are so many books, and you know this. There are so many books released each month. Yeah, yesterday one distributor was visited our bookshop. They get about 500 to 600 titles a month. Meaning, I'm not sure even 10% of them get sold. You know, 10% is 60 titles a month. For anybody to absorb is difficult. They are there on the shelves, but who looks at them? Why should you look at them? And why should you go to a bookshop and ask for them? Why should you go online and search for them? I mean, there has to be a compelling reason behind this. And that compelling reason has to be provided by the publisher or by the author. And if a publisher is putting out that kind of numbers out each week or each month, then they don't have time to dwell on one title for too long. They have to move to the next title. So then it remains to the author to sell the book. Marketing, I don't know how many. of the big publishers have a large enough marketing team to get behind a book for even 2 or 3 months, right? They get behind it if it has done well after its initial promotion. But consistently to push a book that is not doing so well, because a book that is not doing so well doesn't mean that a book is bad. It just means that it hasn't got noticed, maybe. So, and the smaller publishers don't have a marketing. So, where does, I mean, it's left to the author. Because many authors say, that's not my job. I've written, the book is published, the publisher. But if you look at the numbers and if you look at the way the industry is structured, the publishers simply don't have the time to go after a book for a long period of time, and it's left to the author to do it. The author should do it. I mean, once you have given a birth to this baby, you need to look after it. If you're using that analogy. So yeah.
That's true. This in today's time, it is said that even somebody like R.K. Narayan would have needed marketing for his books because the world has become like that. So yeah. So what advice do you have for authors looking to establish connections with local bookstores for promotional events? Because I think this trend I have observed is a very common trend abroad. Internationally, a lot of local bookstores, and you can just walk in and take their space and become a part of events, but it's a little less heard of still in India. Do you think this has scope, or this authors should do this, or
No, I think authors should do this because when the author is seen and heard, that's why books sell during literary festivals because the author is seen and heard. And what they should do is they should just walk into a bookshop and say, "Can I have a session?" Um, can I have a session? And nowadays it's not even books. It's not even bookshops. It is cafes. It is wherever the hosting organization is conducive to this idea, and also might want footfall of their own to happen. So when you say like I know there's a cafe here which is open to these ideas. There are a couple of them actually. So go to them, go to a bookshop, say this is my book, this is how I wish to pitch it. This is what it's going to be. Can I have a session here? Meaning it won't happen on the spot. It won't happen like tomorrow. Let's have a session. It will happen as per the convenience of both. But I think the author needs to initiate that conversation if the publisher won't, because what happens in us in Goa is we don't have too many authors from Goa, right? But we have many authors visiting Goa, and publishers then say, this author is visiting, would you be able to host them? Or authors reach out to us and say, I'm coming to Goa, will you be able to host me? And we almost never say no, because why not? It helps both. It helps both of us. I think many bookshops are of the same idea. Unless the book is totally against their ideology, which could be political or religious. But otherwise, I don't see why it won't happen. But that conversation has to be initiated by the author or publisher.
Leonard, I'm sure you must have seen the trend of influencer publishing that is trending a lot of late. And one of the comments or one of the pros that they have highlighted in accepting books by influencers is that they feel that they don't need to host these events in person because influencers already have an audience which is online, which is through their social media platforms, and which helps them sell the books. So that's why they are preferring that for bigger number of sales. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think about this?
Yes, probably I've written an article, a nice article on yesterday's Hindu, I think.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of thoughts on this. Like, firstly, Kartika from Westland has said that social media following does not necessarily translate into book sales. Yeah, meaning people want to know what you're doing on a daily basis. They do not really want to know what your thoughts are on a particular. Maybe not. But it's not a one-to-one thing anyway. It's not 800 followers means 800 sales. It's not happening. Secondly, we need to know why that book is selling. Meaning, is it selling for something new you have said, or is it something for, or is it selling for selling sake? Which I guess is okay, but it does not really lend. Then it's not really a transferable idea that because X has sold, this influencer has sold 2,000 copies, the next influencer might sell 2,000 copies. Yeah. Um, but the article makes a good point in that the publishers think, okay, at least a minimum number of copies will sell, right? They will sell. Um, will they sell for the second book and the third book? We don't know. They might sell for the first book. So it's not a machine. It's not something that, it's not a gift that will keep on giving, in my opinion, at least. But if you flip that argument and say that you need a social following to sell books, then that's a bit of a problem. Because what about authors who don't have that kind of social following and yet have written good books? Yeah. So what about them? It should not set in a kind of complacency saying that um, these books are selling anyway, kind of thing. There should be a door open for books that do not, authors that do not have a large social media following also.
Very true. What I also found a little surprising, or maybe in a way endorsing the thought, was that Ankur Warikoo very clearly states that, I was targeting people who are non-readers. And that was one of the reasons why I kept the book very simple and short, and perhaps this was going to be one of the first books. So I guess maybe the target audiences for both the kind of writers are always going to be different in this case.
That's that statement, the first part of the statement where he says that, I was writing for those with an attention span of a goldfish. I didn't know whether to be, whether I have to be insulted on behalf of the reader. Because Ankur Warikoo gives financial advice, right? And I mean, who is your author? Who is your reader? Who is your follower if you can't read a simple book?
True, true.
And why do we suppose that the readers are dumb, not dumb, but of a lesser intellectual power? Why do we suppose that? Meaning, I found that whole statement offensive because it supposes that I know more than you and I'm giving out gyan kind of thing. And it supposes that the reader cannot critique that book adequately. Um, but because the fundamental thing that I think is that the author should challenge the reader and should respect the reader also. Meaning, you don't, maybe a book that completely dumps down financial advice is not a book that should be in the market. But I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, true. I agree. So this brings to us to the next question, is that, most of the authors are very sensitive when it comes to the budget, the cost, because marketing, as we all know, is believed to take a lot of money. To become a bestseller, Chetan Bhagat spent lakhs. We know that. And so do you think, what are your thoughts on this? And do you think that there are some creative yet cost-effective ways for authors to market their budget, market their books, and see results? And how do you foresee this situation?
So time more than money. And I think if you put a cost on the time, that's also expensive. But I think it's time more than money. I think it's writing to people, emailing them, putting it on social media. Now Canva and those apps have made it so easy to put it together. It requires a very basic level of learning. It's not very hard to. So there's a lot of time involved. This is my book, this is my book, this is my book. And somebody said that, yeah, I need to see an image thrice before I notice it. So it's constantly in your face saying that read this book, give them, this is a quote from the book, this is an excerpt from the book. That does not cost too much, right? Costs a lot of time, but it does not cost too much monetarily. If you're nearby a bookshop, or if you live in a place where there are bookshops or cafes, go out there. If you're going on a holiday, see if you can schedule something in that place. It's your book. There's no bigger champion for your book than the author itself. So do what you have to. I understand it costs a lot of money. Recently, Akshaya, oh, um, I can't get his last name, um, who is the co-founder of Walking Book Fairs.
Walking Book Fairs, yeah. The Bhang stories author. He just recently wrote that, right? Yeah, the Bhang.
I think he went on a full India tour. He came to Goa also. But he spent a lot of money. He spent a lot of his money because he did air, he did bus, he did train, he did overnight stays. So that costs a lot of money. And if that's something you can afford to do it. But even if not a whole India tour, because he went down to Chennai and Kochi and Bangalore and Goa and then Varanasi and Jaipur and all those places. So, but if you can do train and cover like 5 or 6 bookshops, and if the book is relevant there, the book has to also be relevant in these geographies, because if it's, for example, if it's a history of Goa, then you know the market. This is the market. Go to schools, go to places where the book might be important. Go to colleges, talk about it. I think this is not a game for introverts. Let me tell you that much also, because if you're introvert by nature, then it's difficult to do this. But you really need to be out there.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So this brings us to the last question. What trends do you foresee in book marketing, especially for indie authors in the coming years?
I see it dispersing from this pray and pray approach, where everybody is bombarded by the message and there is hope that someone will notice. I think people will get more personal in terms of communication and say that, this is my book. Will you be able to platform it? So, for example, there is this book called Becoming Goan by Michelle. She used to be in Bombay and many other countries, and then she has come back to Goa, and she's written about that whole process. But what she did was she made sure wherever she could, she's gone and she said, "This is my book." And then she's gone and used her contacts in Bangalore, in Pune. She used to be in these places, in Bombay, and she's asked them, "Can you have me for a session? I would like to talk about my book." See, this works for both the places. It works for the bookshop also. It works for the author also, and it's very difficult to see why a bookshop or a cafe would say no to these things. But this is a Penguin book, but all these things she's done. Penguin has not helped her in any way in this matter, except maybe to make the books available. But this is her, and if you're able to get her on your podcast, and I can introduce you to her if you want. The way she's gone about this is amazing, just amazing. I mean, she's been able to sell books. So it won't be like you sell tons of books every time, but at least people see, oh, Michelle was in this place today, and this thing about seeing that name over and over again, then wondering whether the book should be bought. So.
Yeah, sure, I would love to have, because Bookbot Theory is all about talking about book marketing, because I think authors don't realize that the onus is on them, irrespective of which way they get published, and they need to do something about it. So the aim is to bring transparency to help them understand that the amounts can be small. The amount you can start with even 5,000 rupees or 2,000 rupees, but you need to make an effort towards it. And you can go on building on it. 1 and 2, books don't come with a shelf life. So even if you published like 5 years back, you can start all over again, just start talking about it. that only two things needed are you need to be in the right frame of mind mentally and maybe pocket-wise ready.
Absolutely.
So I had briefly interacted with her at Himalayan Writing Retreat when I was working with them. So she was at that time still working on that book, but I don't have any contact. So please do introduce. I'd be happy to take this forward. And thank you so much, Leonard, for sparing some of your time and for this discussion. It's a very important conversation. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in today. New episodes of Bookbot Theory Season 2 are released every Wednesday. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an update. If you have any questions about bookkeeping or publishing in India, do not hesitate to reach out to us. All the contact details are provided in the description box below. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and leave a comment to share your thoughts. And if you are a writer, don't forget to share it with your fellow writers and invite them to join us on this exciting journey with the Bookbot Theory. Until next time, keep writing and exploring the world of books with us. Thank you so much.